Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. As you might notice, I am back in my front room rather than in my normal recording room, or otherwise known as my napping room. As I mentioned in my last video, we were going to adopt a kitten. As it turns out, she had a brother, and we adopted 2 kittens. It was probably the wisest thing we could do, since our older cats want nothing at all to do with these crazy, spry noisemakers that are running around like crazy when they are allowed some less supervised time. As you can imagine, with all the crafting that I do, I've had to take a lot of precautions. I have to keep eye on the kitten, just like with toddlers. They want to put everything in their mouth. They get into everything, and my house is not exactly the safest for unsupervised play. So it has been crazy. My dedicated recording / napping room is now a kitten room. I've deconstructed it as much as possible. I'm not sure that my lovely wingback chair is ever going to survive, though. These kittens don't seem to care if you put sticky tape on furniture to deter their climbing or clawing. They think sticky tape is a fun toy, and they have now proceeded to take sticky tape off of all of the surfaces that I've put it on. So it has been crazy, but I have been busy during this time of transition and kitten training. And yes, cats can be trained as much as they also train their owners. They benefit from routine and attention and time, and that's what I'm doing. But in between the placating the old cats, training up and playing with the new kittens, and changing lots of litter boxes, I have been doing some creative pursuits. This year, I've kind of gone into a little different creative mode than I've done in a number of years. I'm doing 2 major things. I am trying to create things from scratch that I otherwise could easily purchase. I appreciate the work of really good thread artists, fiber artists. I will purchase a skein of yarn that is done by a wonderful yarn painter. I will buy a bat from an indie dyer. I really love supporting the artisans that are out there. When it comes to machine embroidery, as much as I love the idea of digitizing some of these beautiful things up for myself, and I do have a major project that I have been working on for a couple years for my husband. I'm trying. The truth is that my body, especially my mouse arm, it can only take so much of any one repetitious movement before it starts giving me fits. So this year, I am challenging myself to digitize a number of things myself that don't take a lot of strain on my hands and arms. Something I could buy from somebody else easily, like these pumpkins that I'll show you in a moment, I'm deciding to digitize for myself. And that makes it so that I can certainly use my resources to purchase the really pretty thread art, which I'll show you some of those in a moment as well, that some of the machine embroidery designers make. So like with so many of the other things that I've done, like the Maker's Market that I went to, and the different fiber artist venues that I've gone to, I really do like to support the artisans and the producers and the makers, the people who are this is their business, this is their profession. And so as someone who can do a lot of it from scratch themselves, I'm trying to pick and choose what I make from scratch myself and what I purchase from somebody else. And that's I guess the big thing for going into this autumn. And yes, autumn has arrived. The temperatures have adjusted just a tiny bit. I've been outside enjoying the different weather, helping my husband with some outdoor projects that we need to get done, wearing myself out way too much, doing things that I can do them, but then I pay for them for a few weeks afterwards. I've been doing all that. I've been enjoying autumn. But one of the things I'm discovering with this autumn is that I really am trying to find a balance between the things that I purchase outright and the things that I create from scratch myself. And finding that balance for my own peace of mind, my own peaceful center, because I can digitize and create from scratch. I can use a basic pattern. I can get a sewing pattern and convert it into a machine embroidery in the hoop project. I have to sit down and work through pieces and parts, and I have to say, this is the first one that I did. I was so proud of myself to make that vine work. And I know it's showing up a little funny in the camera. I will have pictures. But I'm so proud of this when I made this one. I was so proud of it, in fact. Ah, yes, I have one over here. When you digitize something yourself, you have the ability to make them pretty much any size you want that fit in your hoop. And so I had so much fun doing this. There is stuff that is done in the machine embroidery, stuff that is done on the old fashion sewing machine. The truth is, and I think it is this little guy, I actually sewed him together by hand. So the stitching on him is machine embroidery, but I sewed him together by hand. I decided to actually see if I liked sewing him together by hand better than his partner here, which I sewed together on the sewing machine, because tiny little stuff is fiddly on the sewing machine. It's doable, but these are projects that, in fact, I'll put a link. I found a YouTube video that shows how to sew a segmented pumpkin. My segmented pumpkin is 6 segments. The video that I will put in the description below shows an 8 segmented pumpkin. Same kind of concept. You can go on to different sites like Pinterest or whatever and find template patterns for these kind of things. But my little guy, he's a 6 segmented pumpkin, and these are based on things that can be sewn in the sewing machine or by hand. You can use old-fashioned techniques. You can use modern machine embroidery techniques. But they're so much fun. And that's what I think this autumn really is about. It's about combining things from the past, things from the present, things that will hopefully be trending in the future, but combining the pieces of our life together. That's what I seem to be doing a lot this fall, because the more that I am challenging myself to do by myself again, the more I have days where I have to put my feet up and get out my knitting and just try to relax. So I've been dabbling. This morning, oh, I'm so pleased. This morning, I made myself a cinnamon apple hand pie, little pie pocket. And I'm so pleased. I'll show pictures of it too. One of the challenges that that I've been trying to figure out is how to cook for 2 people rather than for a family of 4 or for company. It's so often just my husband and I, and I want to be able to cook just for the 2 of us. And this is something I was doing back before we had kids, and I had some recipes that worked great back then, but in the children years, especially with very crafty, very creative, and talented children, I got accustomed to having things like pies and breads, and I'm trying to learn how to do this on a small scale just for my husband and I, that we don't have any waste. And I figured out the bread. One of the things we did is we found a little, they call it an air fryer, but it's actually a small convection oven. And it's funny because my son, who is over in Germany, the little tiny oven I have isn't much smaller than the normal size oven he has in his kitchen, but a little tiny convection oven that I can use to make smaller quantities. And so I figured out bread, but I wanted to do pies because it's the autumn. It's pumpkin season. It is apple season. Oh my goodness. The apples are in season right now in Virginia, and I love being able to go and buy the apples, and I love being able to put up apple preserves. What I love, if you take a good, nice, like pie apple or applesauce apple, or combine pie apples and applesauce apples, and you leave the peels on them and you chop them up small and you cook them down like you do a jelly or a jam, and you make applesauce with the chunks and the peels, and oh my goodness, that is the best bottled pie filling that you can find. You can adjust the sugar quantity to your needs and you use proper canning techniques and processes. But I just love being able to have little apple pies. My daughter got very good at making apple pie crusts and making us pies. And now that she's not here, I have to do it myself. So I sat down yesterday and I figured out how to adapt the pie crust that she always used to a smaller portion, to a half portion. I then chilled it. I then rolled out sections, very much like you would do empanadas or, pasties. I'm trying to remember all the different little pocket pies that you can have, the hand pies that are out there. And I rolled out individual pieces. I put them between parchment paper, have them chilled in the refrigerator so I can pull out 2 at a time and make individual little tiny pies for my husband and I. And this morning I tried actually folding the little into a pocket pie, and it worked beautifully with the chunky applesauce. So I just have been having a lot of fun trying to figure out, because it really feels like we definitely will have empty nest a little bit more consistently from here on out. Trying to figure out how to do these things that give me joy without wearing myself out too much and without having waste. So sometimes I will go to the store and buy a frozen pie or a frozen cake, bring it home, and we're just going to call it good. But sometimes I like to have the traditional old-fashioned kind of concept. And so having projects like this that can be done with lots of technology or with minimal technology, they really give me joy, because then I can share them with people who have different levels of the technology. So I really recommend, if you want a fun project, try this. Now, my little jack-o'-lantern, set this guy over here, put my little guys, we'll put them back over here. This little pumpkin, this one is really simple. I did do the machine embroidery for him. He's just a 2D jack-o'-lantern. And this is on just regular craft felt, honestly. But what I wanted to talk about with both of these jack-o'-lanterns is I did them with machine embroidery. Of course, you could do traditional embroidery, but you could also do this with any of the techniques. If you go back to my Vlogmas last year, you'll see you can use crayon, you can use fabric paint, you can use buttons. You can stitch things on. I prefer to stitch things on because then they are cat friendly. If the cat's got in touch with them, in contact with them, they are more toddler safe. They do have buttons. This one has buttons on the bottom. I like to do things I like to try to make sure everything I'm making is constructed in a way that if the cat's got a hold of them, I would be able to intervene before buttons came off, before yarn came off. So those are the kind of things I keep in mind, is a little bit of safety first as much as possible. But simple projects that can be done if you have machine embroidery capability. Oh my goodness, there are tons and tons and tons of digitizers out there, designers out there that have in the hoop projects. That's what you want to look for. And just, if I'll put some in the description. If you go to my Instagram, I usually link, or try to link in there sometimes. But I'll tell you, right off the top of my head, the top 3 that I would recommend would be Embroidery Library, Kreative Kiwi, and Designs by JuJu. I love their stuff. I love the instructions that come with their stuff. So if you're in machine embroidery, I will shout out, no promotion here, in the sense I'm not being paid to promote this. Those are my three go-to: Embroidery Library, Designs by JuJu, and Kreative Kiwi. And oh my goodness, if you have a machine embroidery, go try it. If you don't, as I said, I will put a link in the description below to a video, and the video that I'm putting the link to, I only found it this morning before doing this recording, because I wanted to have something to be able to share. But their description to their video has link after link after link after link. So I do really recommend, if you want to make this guy or something like this guy, check out that video in my description below. So again, I love to do these some old-fashioned technique as well as fast and furious technique. I like to have a little bit of fun with them. Of course, if you have the technology, why not use it? And one of the other things that I have been doing, again, challenging myself to try to decide, where do I make things, design myself, or where do I purchase? And one of the things I've been participating in this year is Embroidery Library is doing a Christmas make-along kind of thing. And it's a little different than a lot of the ones that you can find on social media, because they give us a theme, not a specific pattern or a specific design, and I love that. And they keep the contest part all in one post, so we can kind of share the other stuff we're working on in the regular Facebook posting ways. I am really enjoying this group, because one of the designs that Embroidery Library's sister company had was, it's Urban Threads. It had this design. And yes, could I sit down and digitize this design? But I'm going to pay somebody to have done this. And this is wonderful. The artisans out there, it's not just about, can I put stitches, tell the machine what stitches to place where. It's about, do I have the vision? Can I see the picture in my head? And I love some of our artisans out there, our artists, the people who, they see this kind of thing in their head and say, hey, let's do this. This would be fun. And it is fun. Now, what I've done differently, the design in here is what you'd purchase. I, on the other hand, added this. And that's because I'm trying out a new hoop, and I needed something to practice with, and I'm challenging myself, because one of the things as a hand quilter, as in I piece by machine, but I quilt by hand, I have never been satisfied with my machine quilting. I have a couple pieces that I am pleased with, but it is not fun for me. It does not give me joy. And I'd rather do it by hand. But I also would rather have some things that I could do quickly, like with this. And so I've been challenging myself to learn how to use my embroidery machine for a few more things other than just the design element. My husband loves this pillow. My kids love this pillow. I love this pillow. I'm using up this is new fabric. This vintage 1970s. I'm using up some of the stash that I have that was my grandma's stash. So I've been having fun with that. When I ended up getting my software, I use Embroidery machine embroidery software. There's a number of different software out there that you can get. But when I switched to Embroidery about 3 years ago, one of the things I was so excited to be able to do is put those quilting stitches around a design. And this is 4 little patches that I did using, let me put it over here, using that technique that of putting the stippling around a purchased embroidery design. And this past couple weeks, I've been trying to clear out some of the stuff that's been piling up over the years. And I sewed the 4 together, made this little pillow, little tufted pillow, put a little button, a little button that was in my bag of odd buttons, and it worked out so perfectly. So that's something I did. I started being able to do is putting it around the individual blocks. And now that I have the bigger hoop, this is no different. I just put crosshatch around an individual block. But I have decided to I wanted to branch out. And this, let me see. This is a purchase design, and you can, there you go. Let me put it over here. Oh, no, over here is perfect. Okay. Turn it. There we go. All right. This is another example of me purchasing a design that my brain just would explode trying to do myself. Could I learn how to do it? Yes. But why in the world give myself the brain strain when I have the ability to purchase such wonderful designs from artists out there? So the design, the dragon landscape mountain scene, that is a purchase design. But all of the stippling that you see, the squiggly stitches, that is something I've created in the computer myself using the software. But this is a larger area than my largest hoop will do. So I challenged myself to learn how to re-hoop multiple times and configure. And I went after this pillow, which this is my husband's pillow. He loves the design. I've actually got another pillow I made for him that he uses when he watches TV. And this is already covered with cat hair. But one of the things that after doing this, that I realized is that if I challenged myself enough to sit down and do the math and do the calculations, I could, and I'll put a picture of this in, I didn't remember to bring it here, but I can put a picture. But one of the things that I like to do is I like to make receiving blankets to give as gifts, flannel receiving blankets to give as gifts. And I inherited a bunch of flannel from my grandma and all the little remnants from when I made pajamas for my kids. All those scraps, I didn't want to throw those away. So one of the things I did is my kids and I, we cut up all the scraps into 6x6 squares, or some measurement like that. And the objective is to sew them together, to make these receiving blankets. But when I do flannel patchwork, just simple patchwork, when I do flannel frays. It's a more open weave. It's not a tight weave like quilting cotton. And so it can fray more easily than a quilting. So I always use a larger seam allowance, and because I've run into issues with this, I really like to make sure that the seams won't fray. And the easiest way of doing that is to stitch over them. But when I've done that at the sewing machine, it's a lot of sewing machine time, and again, that repetition, I have to take things in bouts. So one of the things I thought about is, could I create a stippling design that I could use on these receiving blankets, so that I could donate them and feel secure that they would hold together. And yes, I managed to figure out how to do that. It's not horribly complicated in that sense, but for me, it's a challenge because it challenges me to overcome some mental block on the process, as well as it challenges me to figure out the actual math. I believe my blocks were actually cut to 5.5 inches square. The larger seam allowance, they come down to about 5. So I'm going for 40 inches, breaking that down and putting that into a situation to where I can actually machine quilt the finished receiving blanket. That's been a big challenge for me. And it's been a challenge that I've enjoyed and I've had success with, and I'm thrilled. I have the first one done. I'm not sure how well it will show up even if I try to take a picture of it. But because it's in lighter colors and the stippling kind of disappears in it. But it works for me because I believe in the front, the back should look as good as the front. And sometimes a lot of products that get made quickly, the back doesn't look as good as the front. And that bothers me because I guess I learned how to do things like this by hand, my quilts, etc. I learned how to do the hand stuff. I learned where my weaknesses were, where now I know that I had things interfering with the success in some areas. But I like doing things by hand. I like doing things with quality. And when I move over to technology, I want the technology to be, whoops, there we go. I want the technology to be quality. I want to be pleased with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not looking for perfection, but I am looking for a balance. And if the front and the back are both in balance, then I feel like it's something that can be shared. Even if it's in a donation and I don't ever know of the people and the people can't ever complain to me like my family or friends might. Even more so if I'm giving a blanket as a donation. I want it to hold up. I want it to go into the wash. I want it to be loved and drug around and spit up on and washed again. And I want it to hold up. So that is some challenging myself to do it with the machine so it can be done faster. Because I have an entire bin, large bin of pre-cut flannel squares that are waiting for me to sew together and put together in donation receiving blankets. So that's what I've been up to. Now, because we have gone a little bit over the time I expected, we might as well just go for a few more minutes and I can show you what I've been doing when I need my feet up. So we have been, as I said, doing some yard work that there are things, my husband does 95% of the yard work, 5% of the labor. But there are things that I have better dexterity with, better, a lot of it comes down to I have a better depth perception. So when it comes to smoothing out concrete or such, sometimes I have to get involved and I pay the price. I pay the price every time. But I also enjoy that time. I've always enjoyed doing the construction projects, the yard projects with my husband and my kids in the past. And And I don't want to I have to recognize, I have to find balance. I pay a price when I do certain things. I pay a price, and it takes a little while to recover. But it's worth it to have those moments, to live in those moments. And so I have been outside in the cooler temperatures, getting bug bitten and helping. And when I come in, it means I have to get my feet up. I have to get get everything to relax again. I have to breathe through the side effect of having overdone certain things. So the other day I came in after doing a little bit of some concrete repair work. And my spinning project that I'm currently doing is getting close to being ready to ply so that I can make another shawl or capelet. But not wanting to wait for it and needing a knitting project as opposed to a quilting project, I grabbed the bag of little orphan ball of yarn that we'd gone through the house and collected all of them up because the kittens were coming. And so I grabbed the bag and I started knitting. And I have started a second capelet. And I will show, I'll show a picture over here. But I've started a capelet. It is all the orphan leftover ball. I mean, I can just show you. I have all of the ends that have to be woven in. But it's all the little balls of yarn that were left over from different projects that are of a similar kind of decay worsted weight. Then, when I ran out of most of those, I went down and got an orphan skein. A Tour de Fleece 2020 or 2021 skein, I believe. And I started putting it on it. And when this one runs out, I'll need at least one more of these orphan Tour de Fleece skeins. And I'm making another capelet. And I should have it done for the next video. So this is proof of concept. You can really do it at any gauge. And I did check. This is a size 7 needle this time. For those of you who watch my capelet video. And for those of you that have watched my capelet video and have gone and downloaded my pattern, and especially for those of you that have commented in Facebook and the different ways of reaching me, thank you so much for your reception of this project. Just the interest alone delighted me. I was so tickled. And I can't wait. I hope to be able to see some finished capelets soon. But this is my proof of concept. You can do it in any gauge, and in this case, with many, many color changes. I will probably call this, I've been laughing and teasing my husband about it. It's, if you took, for the Harry Potter fans, if you took Luna Lovegood and Molly Weasley and you put them together, this is the shawl they would create. So, I will have this to share finished probably in my next video. So, proof of concept. Great way to use up remnant balls of yarn and sample skeins, orphan skeins. A lot of fun. And I suspect I will make more. Well, probably end up calling them my Tour de Fleece orphan skein capelets. Because when I do challenge myself to do some new technique or to play with color or whatever, I do end up with a lot of orphan skeins. And what a fun way to use it. One of these days, maybe I'll sit down and actually knit an Afghan. Probably still garter stitch. But the lovely thing about the way the capelet works is if I really don't want to wear it as a shawl, I'll sew up the opening, felt the crap out of it, and have it as a kitty bed. So, I hope that that you have enjoyed my ramblings today. I know it's kind of been all over the place. I've shown you my pumpkins. I've shown you the pillows. Again, if you are on Instagram or Facebook, go ahead and look up Pioneer Lady at Pithy Ponderings and follow me to see as I post everything from the pies that I'm making to the little pumpkins. I try to do updates as much as possible there. And until I make my next video, I hope you have an opportunity to unwind with fiber and fabric, and that you are enjoying this, whether it is the fall equinox or the spring equinox in the place that you live. I hope that you are enjoying this transitional season, and I wish you all the best. Stay healthy, and we'll see you again really soon.